schemes to improve life on bad estates.
We'd be including a homework club so that the children can improve their standard of education, and so that lone parents can get their independence back by going to work. We would be looking for training and for jobs to be available for young people to be working on the refurbishment themselves.
But the new unit comes as the Social Security Secretary prepares to cut lone parent benefits, prompting some Labour MPs to rebel against their own government.
The Social Exclusion Unit will deal with problems of poverty, of which lone parents are a major part of poverty in this country. And on Wednesday, the Social Security Bill will take away the benefit from lone parents. It's bizarre and ridiculous, and a very large number of Labour MPs are strongly opposed to it.
The Prime Minister will say that the Social Exclusion Unit has two purposes: one, to help provide fresh opportunities to those on the fringes of society, and the other to help reduce the financial and social cost to the nation of deprivation and crime. John Draper, ITN, Downing Street.
Hundreds more farmers have been arriving overnight at the American position and that of Europe. Claire Cross reports.
Vice President Gore's speech came after a week of efforts by senior officials failed to answer the key question of how far emissions of gases should be cut. Many of the disagreements revolved around the United States' hardline stance that emissions should be stabilised at 1990 levels, compared with the European Union proposal that they should be cut by 15% by 2010.
I commit to you today that the United States is prepared to act and will act. For my part, I have come here to Kyoto because I am both determined and optimistic that we can succeed. I believe that by our coming together in Kyoto, we have already achieved a major victory, one of both substance and of spirit. I have no doubt that the process we have started here inevitably will lead to a solution in the days or years ahead.
There are signs the logjam might be breaking. Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott has said the EU is ready to back down from its ambitious target figure. The Vice President also said each of the 160 nations at the conference has brought unique perspectives to the table, but none of the proposals will solve the problem by itself. Scientists believe global warming brought about by a build-up of greenhouse gases will lead to more frequent storms, rising sea levels and melting of polar ice, and that action must be taken. Claire Cross, ITN.
Israel's air and seaports, banks, postal services and stock exchange have been reopening following the end of the national strike that paralysed the country. A day of negotiations in court ended with an announcement by the leader of the Histadrut Labour Federation, Amir Peretz, that he was signing an agreement with the government. The strike by nearly 750,000 public sector workers in a dispute over pensions and privatisation has been costing the Israeli economy about £20 million a day. In Devon, a search will resume at first light for the 6 schoolgirls missing on Dartmoor. A helicopter from RAF Chivener has been assigned to help the Dartmoor rescue group scout the moors. The 14 and 15-year-olds from Torpoint School in Cornwall were on a hiking expedition but failed to arrive at a checkpoint yesterday afternoon. Mother of 3, Denise Giddings, will appear before magistrates at Basildon in Essex today, charged with the abduction of baby Carly Hawthorne. Doctors say baby Carly, who was snatched from Basildon Hospital just 3 hours after she was born, will probably go home tomorrow, hours after being reunited with her parents. All flights of Russia's biggest cargo plane have been suspended while accident investigators probe the causes of the crash in Siberia. More than 60 people are now thought to have died when a giant Antonov 124 freighter crashed into a block of flats seconds after takeoff. It now appears the 2 port engines both failed, leading to questions about the standards of maintenance or the quality of the fuel used. Ben McCarthy reports from Moscow.
Most of the 340-ton cargo plane, which had been carrying more than 100 tons of fuel, broke up on impact and was incinerated by the huge fire that engulfed the crash scene. More than 1,000 rescue workers spent the night sifting through the wreckage, searching for bodies in temperatures as low as -25°C. They don't expect to find any survivors in the wreckage. Nearly 50 bodies have been recovered so far, including 2 children, one from an orphanage. But in such a densely populated area, it's miraculous the death toll isn't higher. The aircraft's black box flight data recorders are being flown here to Moscow, where they'll be analysed to try and establish the cause of the crash. They've been badly damaged by fire, but should still be able to explain why two of the huge cargo plane's engines seem to have failed just seconds after takeoff. Ben McCarthy, ITN, Moscow.
And now for a look at some of the headlines in this morning's pacing. The millions of people dispossessed and made homeless under the old regime. The government's hopes now rest on small-scale do-it-yourself projects. Kuna Bradbury reports on one such scheme on the edge of Cape Town.
A housing estate going up in Cape Town, a self-help scheme that's a tiny part of a major change taking place in the new South Africa. Millions of people, mostly black, will be affected in the years to come. At the center of the change is land. 80% of South Africa is owned by whites, who make up just 13% of the population. It's a situation created by apartheid rule, years when laws allowed land to be forcibly taken over to further the aims of white domination. This is one example of that policy, an area in Cape Town known as District 6. The wasteland marks all that's left of a once thriving community of peoples from around the world. 30 years ago, bulldozers moved in to create a whites-only suburb. Herbie Lewandal is a victim of another Cape Town eviction from here in the Simonstown district of the city. His is among thousands of cases that have been lodged all over South Africa since the introduction of a new land law 3 years ago. It's a highly complex and emotive issue, a fact recognized by the government. Settling claims to areas like District 6 is expected to take at least 20 years. The government says it'll give priority to the disadvantaged.
Essentially, the poor, the homeless, destitute have to get priority in terms of our program, including those who need land for productive use.
Back at the Philippi Housing Project in Cape Town's Black Township of Guguletu, members of a homeless people's group are taking advantage of government loans of just over $3,000 to build their own homes. They're among the lucky ones who've managed to acquire the land to build on. More than 1,000 self-help organizations like this one exist throughout the country. Most, though, are still waiting to get the land they need to build on. A few in South Africa believe the government should speed up the process by taking direct action to expropriate white-owned land, echoing the intention of Zimbabwe's Prime Minister, Robert Mugabe. It's a move that's being ruled out by the government. Despite the criticisms, projects like those in Philippi are being highlighted as the way forward. Government figures say that to date, almost 500,000 people stand to gain, and that almost 2 million hectares of land will change hands. The belief is that South Africa's future will depend on the success of the land reforms. For former District 6 resident Vincent Colby, the future will mean a return to a lifestyle he and his family once enjoyed.
And we are hoping that District 6 will be a lesson, an object lesson, whereby the new South Africans can learn that once there was a place where people of any color, language, religion could breathe the same air, catch the same bus, buy food from the same shop, even marry each other, and war won't break out. In fact, we are better people because of it.
Woodrow Wyatt, the